All right, let's talk Michigan Wolverines here for a little bit. We obviously know Michigan part of Big Ten. It's one of the more exciting conferences in college football. A lot of programs coming into it. It's becoming, along with the SEC, one of the two, for all intents and purposes, super conferences in the world of college football. But despite all this movement, despite all this attention about the addition of teams, you know it, Mize. I know it. The entire college football world knows it. The Big Ten will come down to two programs, Michigan and Ohio State. That's how it's been the last few years. That's how it will be in the future. And the recruiting battle between those two schools will precede the battles on Saturday. So whoever wins the recruiting game during the offseason will most likely end up being in the best position to win those games when they really count during the fall. And it looks like Michigan is making a lot of great headway on that front. Let's pull up this report. Then we can talk about it more in detail on the other side. This is courtesy of Wolverines Digest. The latest list put out by On3 Recruits will certainly provide the Maize and Blue faithful with more ammo in the trash talking department, as the recruiting outlet currently has the Wolverines ahead of the Buckeyes when it comes to the highest percentage of blue chip commitments in the 2025 cycle. Ohio State currently ranks number one overall in recruiting rankings, according to On3, but the Buckeyes also have 23 commitments as part of their 2025 class. Michigan currently ranks number 11 nationally, but has 8 fewer commitments at this point in the cycle, 15. When it comes to Michigan's current advantage over Ohio State, the name of the game is quality, not quantity. This is a recipe that has obviously served the Wolverines well in the past, and it's a great sign for throwing more in the staff as they get ready for 2024. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, but first, Michigan fans, in the comment section below. Look, everybody, especially you guys, but everybody in college football is looking forward to yet another Michigan-Ohio State game this fall. But give us another game, a different game that you're really excited for as well. There's a lot of great matchups on the Wolverines schedule, but pick one. What's your other game beside the Ohio State game that you're really excited about? Make sure you put it in the comment section below. But Miles, what are your thoughts on this latest recruiting update when it comes to Michigan?
Yeah, Nick, I think this is big for Michigan because I think this just shows sometimes teams don't really understand how to utilize the reach that they have. You look at a team like Ohio State lately, they have unlimited money. They've spent so much money on the recruiting game. You look at Texas, they've also spent so much money on the recruiting game. Where do these guys land up? They get some players to come to their team, but are they the right players? Are they the ones that are going to keep this team going forward? Because I think the article says it beautifully. Quality is what is important now, not quantity. And when you look at Ohio State and Michigan, I think it's important to understand not necessarily that Ohio has 23 players versus Michigan has 15. I think we need to understand that this isn't a Michigan team sneaking in with like 6 guys on their recruiting board. And it's just like, an anomaly that they haven't yet had enough bad players in the rank to bring them down. They have 15 guys. They have a pretty good sample size so far in this class. And they're edging out a team like Ohio State who's spent so much money. And you look up the board, the best teams in college football are the teams who can do this well. They can both use their reach to gain players, but also get a good amount of good players as well. Quality versus quantity. See Oregon at the top of the list, 94% blue chip players. They're a great example of this. That is why Dan Lanning has gotten this team to rise up the ranks. LSU, perennial contender, another team, 93% blue chip players. They have done this as well. Georgia, definitely probably I'd say the best team in college football the last 3 years, bar none. They're up there, 89%. You see Michigan coming into the mix here. I think it's important to note what they have been able to do with everything going on because Ohio State, this is, the main comparison here. They're great, but Michigan, they are doing it a lot better. And here's the kicker, Nick. Michigan hasn't even secured a 5-star commitment yet this recruiting cycle. We all know they're going to get one eventually. They're going to trickle in, but it was said, it's early on in the 2025 cycle, and Michigan hasn't even gotten the 5-star commitments that they have been going for yet. They have not yet committed to this Michigan team. So when that happens, I think it's going to skyrocket the score even more because Ohio State, on the other hand, they already have 3 guys that are 5-star commitments in this class. So I think Michigan, they're winning the battle, but I think they could pull away even further as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And look, when it comes to building a roster, the college game is becoming much closer to the NFL game. In the NFL, it generally works like this: the best teams build a roster. Look, obviously, you have to get quarterback right, of course. But outside of that, you want to maximize your number of stars and minimize weaknesses, right? You really don't care so much about the middle, right? You can have a bunch of like dead average players as long as no one's terrible. Then want to have as many stars as humanly possible. That's how you win in the NFL. A lot of people are under the false notion that the goal is just to have a million really solid players, like have as many above average good players as possible. If you look at what actually wins, that's not how it works, right? You want to make sure you have a healthy number of stars and no real weaknesses. If you do those two things, you will succeed in the National Football League, which, by the way, was Harbaugh's dirty little secret at Michigan. He built talented rosters with in terms of having a number of stars with no real weakness during his time with the Wolverines when compared to the top competition. That's why they were able to win. Ohio State, every single time that Michigan beat them, they had a clear and obvious weakness. Whether it was the run defense one year, whether it was the passing game this past season, they all had one clear weakness. Michigan didn't have that. It's why Michigan won all of those instances. Focusing on the quality allows you to maintain that strategy in terms of maximizing your stars. And Sharon Moore is maintaining that strategy. And I think it's a great sign that Michigan's success in the Big Ten, especially over Ohio State, will continue. But here's the really beautiful thing about all this, Mize. You brought up NIL money and how much Ohio State is spending. According to NIL-NCAA.com, Ohio State has funded for NIL about $20 million. That's the second most in college football. Michigan is about $4 million behind Ohio State, which is a lot. The difference between Ohio State and Michigan is the difference between Michigan and Virginia. I love the state of Virginia. The school is nice. But let's be honest here, they're not exactly a football power. That's a big gap. And despite having that big gap on their side, if you look at Ohio State, Michigan is beating them in the quality department. That's a lot of credit to Sharon Moore. That's a big credit to his staff and a great sign for the future of this Michigan Wolverines program.